Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Mark Miller. It's great to have you join us today.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate being here, Rocky.
And I am excited for the conversation. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. Well, I am the manager of the Hilton family office. And yes, that is the Hilton family, of the Hilton hotels, but they've done a lot more than hotels over the years. And then also, and a lot of what we might talk about today is I have an offshoot company with my main partner, who is Brad Hilton, who is the grandson of Conrad Hilton. We kind of came up with the concept of take a lot of these ideas from a family office. And by the way, for those of folks that don't know what a family office is, it's when a bunch of rich people get together and they pool their resources. It costs them less to manage their money, and then they have all these great ideas that that they collaborate on. So, but our spin-off company is called Hilton Tax and Wealth Advisors, where we're taking these strategies of the wealthiest of the wealthy and bringing them more down the main street. Just so happens that I'm a registered business financial consultant, and I work with primarily business owners. And we kind of bring these advanced strategies more down to Main Street for everyday business owners.
And you've owned in the past, is this your 12th business? Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes.
So, what are some of the lessons learned from owning all these businesses?
Well, primarily, most of them have been in the financial world. Um, what are some of the lessons I would say? One of the things that I've really learned, it has been really interesting to see almost every business that I've built. It takes about 2 years. It seems like that 2 years is that sweet spot for you to really get traction. And for me, and what my experience has been, to really get traction and realize that you really built something. And there's been some businesses I've tried to build, and that 2 years comes around and it didn't work. And that's kind of my sweet spot. And to all your business owner listeners, and even if people are listening that are maybe looking to start a business for the first time, you've got to get it. A year is not long enough. Sometimes 2 years isn't even long enough. And you can see that the 2 years, though, is when I can tell when I've got traction or not. And the businesses that have really done well, once we've hit that 2 years, if we're at a certain place, then we know, hey, we're good to go, good to invest more money or whatever, as long as things are going well. So that's one thing I've learned. The
And
other
so, let
thing,
me comment on that because what I find is it takes 3 years to get to where you want. So
okay,
2 years, to me, 2 years is okay. We got traction, but
got
it's
it.
usually about year three where you actually starting to make money, right? And
Okay,
it's doing what you want it to. Now, some
I
businesses can
totally
make
get that.
money day one,
Hmm.
but a lot of times, like you said, building up the clients and building up the traction and the systems takes a couple years. I think it still takes another year till you start to really get your paydays coming out.
Right, right.
Unless some do faster, and we like that. Of course, there are some that are going on for decades and still haven't done that. So that's why they're here. Go ahead with your next topic.
Well, yeah. I was going to say also is that starting a business too, understanding that if you want to really have a successful business, you have to be passionate about it and realize that it takes a lot of hours. And I had shared earlier with you when we were talking that I had a conversation with some friends the other day, and somebody was asking me about starting a business. They were a W-2 employee, and they were thinking, I could tell that they were thinking of they were looking at the bright lights of being a business owner and thought, oh, well, I'm going to work only half as much and I'm going to make more money than I made in my W-2 job. But what the thing I learned about though is even though you may work harder, it's not, you don't feel like you're working harder because you're passionate, because it's yours. And every hour you put in, you're getting the benefit of that, as opposed to a W-2 employee, that it can often become a grind because you're not really getting any leveraged benefit out of being an employee. So those are
No,
some
that
of the things I've learned so far.
and you now you consult with business owners. So when business owners are calling you, what are some of the biggest issues that they're facing that they need help with?
Well, I would say one of the big things a lot of times marketing. And in the Hilton Financial Network, specifically, Hilton Institute of Business is one of our partners, has worked with hundreds of thousands of business owners in digital marketing, all kinds of marketing concepts. So that's a big one. Ironically, I also get a lot of business owners that I work with that are pretty darn successful. They're looking to expand, whether it's a spinoff of what they're currently doing, or whether they're, say, looking at a real estate investment or buying a property so they can put their business in it, a building to put their business in, or if they're just looking, they've heard about a franchise opportunity or something like that. Because, business owners are, by nature, kind of entrepreneurs. And I mean, that's the reason why I've had so many companies, because after a period of time, you build a company, you're pretty successful at it. You tend to get, itchy to look at something different or try something new. So I probably say, yeah, that's one of my biggest things. Hey, evaluate this opportunity or evaluate that opportunity, and then we might hook them up with one of the vendors, or for instance, the due diligence project, or someone in the Hilton Financial Network to help them. Not to say that I don't know a lot, because I've been around the block at a lot of companies, and I think I do a great job. But we also have partners that work with us, that areas that I can't answer questions in, we can go to help people evaluate opportunities or evaluate certain things they're doing in their business to make sure they're making the right moves and the right decisions.
And I find a lot of times one of the biggest wastes of money in business is marketing,
Hmm.
especially if you don't have good metrics to track what's working and what's not. And that's A. And then B, it seems like the rules of the game, especially in digital marketing, seem to change every day,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And you
According to
have to,
what Facebook and LinkedIn tell you can do.
right. And if you're not keeping up on that, then that creates an issue, because all of a sudden you're spending the same amount of money and the phones aren't ringing.
Hmm.
But I'm always a big fan in that's a great way to start your business, but you've got to figure out how to build a referral system that you
Yes.
don't have to spend a ton
That's number
marketing
one.
on.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the most important thing.
And I don't know. Like, what do you see with business owners? Are most of them committed to doing that, or do they tend to throw money at the problem?
It's a real hit or miss, I think. I've got business owners that are extremely successful on the digital marketing side and have systems, and even when things change, they can adapt and they can do well. But I would say, yeah, probably the best, the most successful business owners I've had, especially when they start going up market in their industry, it's relationships. It's I mean, getting to know people, taking really good care of your clients, and then the referrals just kind of naturally come. Some of our folks have more process based referral systems, but really, when I look at it, and even in my businesses that are the most mature and the doing the best, the referrals, again, the natural, just communicating with people, again, giving great customer service, and then developing relationships with those customers help you develop relationships with people they send your way. And I would probably say, and again, it depends on where you are in your business. I mean, if you're just starting out, you may have to start at the lowest level. I mean, there's some people still have to cold call, even though that sounds old school, but there are some businesses that I know even today that are still cold calling a little bit. Okay. So it just depends on what kind of business you're in and what stage you're in.
It's funny because I was on with a client today. He was working for home and he got interrupted because there was a guy knocking on his door selling pest control.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's still It's funny because I noticed that business owners tend to stay away from cold calling these days,
Yeah.
I think. But when I first started in sales way back in a long time ago, that's what we did. We went out and we cold called, and
Yeah. I
it's
did the same thing.
amazing
I did the same thing. Yeah.
how much business you can get by walking in the door and having a conversation.
Mhm. I remember, so when I got out of college, I went to work for IDS American Express, and literally they put me in a room that was on the top floor with nothing but, blank desks with nothing on them, a chair, and put the phone book in front of you. And I remember, I sold one of the largest at that time. Up at that point, this was in the 80s. I show my age. At that time, I sold one of the largest life insurance policies in American Express history as a punk 22, 23-year-old kid, from the phone book. So literally just, cold calling from the phone book. So yeah, hey, and some people still do it. I mean, that's why on our cell phones we all get calls every day. People are still doing
Yeah.
cold calling.
Well, but they're not, they're doing like automated. It's
Yeah,
rare
that's
that
true.
you get a person. It seems like everybody wants to send emails these days. And I can tell you, I don't even read them. And same thing on LinkedIn, people just reaching out, trying to pitch you on stuff. 99% of it doesn't get listened to. But if you have that, even if you have that little bit of a relationship, hey, I saw you at the event last week, or I stopped by your business and I noticed X. Like, you have a better chance of doing that, I
You know
think.
what's interesting? I'm going to share this too, is because Hilton Tax and Wealth Advisors is a spinoff of the family office, and we've only been doing it a couple years, but we've gotten great traction. And one of the things that has helped us, I've written a couple books, but they're small, like 100-page books.
Hmm.
And what we're finding is getting these books in people's hands is kind of a countermeasure right now, because no one wants to read a book anymore. Most people want the quick snippet video and all of that. But these short books, people are reading them and they're getting them in their hands. And if anything, they're putting them on their desk to read when they jump on a plane or something like that. So, but no one, people are still, quote, writing books, but a lot of them are like, ebooks or things like that. So that's an example of kind of us working with one of our Hilton partners who's a digital marketing expert. It's kind of a little counterintuitive now because people aren't expecting that they could actually get a free book. So that's something that's kind of just changing with the times, but trying to make it a little bit different to penetrate the market.
What we actually, and what I've been promoting a lot lately is postcards.
Hmm.
And I'll
Interesting.
tell you why. A, they're inexpensive,
Yeah,
right? B, you have to look at it. Okay.
that's right. That's right.
And depending on where you live, like my mailbox is all the way down the end of the driveway, right? So it's going to take me a minute to get up the driveway and I'm going to just go through stuff. And if it catches my interest, it's like you end up putting it somewhere and it sits there. And
Yeah,
eventually, now, if it's not of interest or it's a bad postcard, you chuck it, no doubt about it. But you have to make that decision. It's a little bit more than a scroll, right? It's a little more
yes.
than, and if it's an envelope, nobody's going to open the envelope. They look at it as junk mail, they throw it out. But
Hmm.
if you've got an eye catching postcard, if you've done well, oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And so,
I can tell you, I have, and my wife has 4, 5, 6 postcards in a little drawer for, mainly it's stuff that needs to be done around the house. And like, oh,
yeah.
I know that needs to be done. And I've got 4 of those postcards. So when I'm ready to do it, I pull those postcards out and I call those 4 people to get a bid or estimate or whatever. Yeah.
And you're not going to go look them up on Facebook because you forgot who they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's that perpetual reminder. You have to keep changing because things get old and old gets new.
Hmm.
And you keep
Well said.
working with it. And here's the thing, the postcards cost, I think, less than $1, right? So it's
Mm,
super cheap, and I can super target a postcard. So if I want to hit a high end neighborhood and there's only 100 homes, I can do a postcard to just 100 homes.
yeah. Right.
Or if I'm picking a particular type of business, let's say insurance agencies, I could get a list of 100 insurance agencies and then spend $100. So it's pretty inexpensive.
Hmm.
Um, and then you can do follow up with a phone call or something to remind people. And again, you have to do multi-pronged type of way of doing that. The other thing you talked about was, and we kind of got off on the marketing, but making investments in real estate and even what Hilton's doing. So, I always think a business owner that can buy the building they're in, great investment because
Hmm.
you're your best tenant, right?
Hmm.
And
You
maybe you buy
always know you're
something,
going to have one tenant.
you have one tenant.
Yes.
And if you buy a bigger building, at least you can put a couple other people in there. So now you can create a little bit of a cash flow stream. Or if you're in growth mode, it's going to be a couple years. At least in the meantime, you put tenants in there until you do it. And then the other thing I think is building congruent businesses,
Hmm.
right? So in your case, the Hilton office started doing this as well. So they're adding on kind of congruent businesses to what they're
Right.
doing. It
Absolutely.
could be I do HVAC, and now we're going to add in, I don't know, roofing, or exterior. Like a roofing guy could easily add in windows or exterior or something else.
Right.
And
Right.
and so you're building different businesses, each kind of running independent, but each referring to each other.
Absolutely.
And that helps with marketing costs. So going back down
Absolutely.
to that.
And I mean, the concept we have with Hilton Tax and Wealth Advisors is again to make these really advanced strategies available more to the average investor, Main Street folks, and everything. But the reality is, every once in a while, from Hilton Tax and Wealth Advisors, we get somebody that can qualify, and we for the Hilton family office too. Okay, and vice versa. Somebody comes to the Hilton family office and they don't quite qualify, then we can take care of them. Those business owners with Hilton Tax and Wealth Advisors. So, excellent point. Very good point.
So let's talk a little bit about taxes, because I seem to get into lots of issues with accountants and taxes, because invariably the accountant says spend money, you have too big a tax bill. And I'm like, we're not going to spend money to save taxes, right?
Yeah, that's not
We
a tax strategy.
That's not a tax strategy. But yet I would bet that it is the number one tax strategy that doesn't make sense. The one that
Yeah,
I love the most, and I know you can work with this one, is retirement planning, because you get to keep the money and
right.
you get a tax deduction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that might be, probably, I would say from what we see, that the number one number one and number two strategies that most CPAs give, and this is usually about it, is put your money in some kind of qualified plan and just make sure your entities are proper. Okay. And then occasionally I hear that too. It's just like, oh, you're getting to the end of the year. Well, is there something you've been putting off, not paying for? Get your expenses up. Okay. Again, that's not to me, a tax strategy at all. And in some ways, entity planning, I don't see that. It can be a strategy, but if done right, but it's just something that has to be done. And you need to get good advice on doing it right and that you've got the best entity. Um, uh, if you don't, then it could ultimately cost you a lot of money. But then the thing that we just see all the time, hey, if you got a tax problem, throw some money in a 401k or you can't put a whole lot in an IRA, qualified IRA, but maybe a SEP or something like that, and then it kind of just stops, because there's nothing else really in the arsenal for most CPAs that are more compliance and preparation based as opposed to planning based and tax mitigation based, where that's the focus. How can we truly? Now, most people believe that's not the case. They think that their CPA there is there to save them as much as they can on their taxes. In reality, most CPAs, that's not how they're structured and not how they're set up.
No, and I think that's where a lot of confusion comes up, is that they are not structured, they are not set up for that.
Mhm.
But the average business owner doesn't always know that. And I know when it comes
Yes.
to entity selection, I mean, there's a couple different parts of it. One is legal protection, right? So
Hmm.
that's for the attorneys. Two is tax consequences.
Yeah.
And three is, though, the long-term strategy. Because depending on what your long-term strategy is and what you're trying to do as an exit, there are different ways to set up your entities to do that appropriately, that you might be able to take care of certain types of tax deductions or certain types of things when you go to sell it. And
Hmm.
so you should just be aware of it. But I think more often than not, it's kind of like a checkbox and they don't actually think through the end game.
Right.
And more often than not, these days, it's, oh, be an S Corp, be an S Corp, be an S Corp. I'm like, you do realize that there are a lot of downsides to the S Corp that nobody ever talks
That's
about.
right. Yeah.
And sometimes S Corps pay more taxes. It really depends on, again, what are your goals? Where are you trying to get to? And how does that fit in with your whole plan? Because when you look at it holistically, then the game changes. And
Yes.
so the question is, how are you going to do that?
That's really good points. And that's why, so like the family office concept is where everybody's collaborating. So you mentioned the CPA and you mentioned the attorney, that they need to collaborate just for that reason that you just said, for the long-term planning, to make sure that it's the proper entity for what your goals are. I mean, that's a really, really good point. And our the thing that we fight a lot against, and when I wasn't doing things in such a holistic fashion like I do now in the industry when I was younger and everything, is I was just this one-off guy that was helping people manage their money or invest their money, and people needed so much more than that. And if you were only giving one of them, and especially, and no one was making any effort, the CPA, the insurance person, the investment person, various other people you have involved are making zero effort to even talk to each other, then you're paying the price for that. And that's one of the concepts of the family office, because that's what makes the office. The Rockefellers, which were the first that started the family office concept back in the 1800s. And the reason they did that is because they were so frustrated with all the infighting and the fighting back and forth between their advisors and everything. And they said, well, why don't we just make an office, and all of these people have to get along and they have to work and they have to talk every day. And what are they doing? They're only talking about our stuff. They're not going to, have 10 or 20 or 30 other clients. So that concept, what we call it is synergy, is kind of what we've done with Hilton Tax and Wealth Advisors. Is we're bringing a little of that, not as robust because we're not able to, but we're trying to bring that concept down again to the average investor, to where we make sure in that relationship everyone is talking and building that synergy. It's a big thing, really big thing.
It is, and I think what happens, especially for entrepreneurs, is shiny object syndrome. And so, they tend to hear something and flock to it. But and this is the same thing with financial planning.
Hmm.
It they're more product focused than they are process and outcome
Right.
focused. Like
Absolutely.
what's the best stock tip? No, what's the best investment plan? But nobody asks that question.
Mm,
They all want the
you're
stock
right.
tip, not the investment plan.
Yeah.
So when you see business owners coming to you, how open are they aware of these concepts that all of these things have to go together? Is that an education process or
You
does
know,
it depend?
even some of our most successful business owners, they're clueless about that. You know, what we talk about, and this is why Brad Hilton and I are so passionate about Hilton Tax and Wealth Advisors, because um, it's about access. You know the old adage, you don't know what you don't know until you know it, right? That most business owners have no clue about these concepts. They don't know and understand the concept because they haven't been introduced to the concept of synergy, where all of your advisors are in quarterly communication, are talking to each other and building that what you talked about, that holistic plan that gets you to your goals so much faster and so much more efficiently without as much drag on building your wealth. Okay. Well, when folks first come to us, even some very, very successful business people, this is a brand new concept to them, but they tell us why this side of their advisory, this person they're working with, it's broken, or that's because this is broken, or that's broken. I just had a meeting with a client today, that a brand new client, that his CPA relationship was broken. And the reason it was broken is because he had done a giant sale of a portion of his business, and his CPA and his attorney and his advisor did none of them talk to each other. So where it broke down most was, ironically, with the CPA situation and how much taxes he had to pay. So if all three of those people had gotten together, then he probably would have paid maybe a quarter of the amount of taxes that he had to pay. So of course he was angry, he was upset, and that relationship had broken down. And because that was the person he was primarily talking to about all of this stuff, when you needed to have the other people involved, or even someone in some ways like us, that can be kind of the 30,000-foot level kind of quarterback in the situation, that'll be able to bring all those advisors together, and then be able to look at it and say, hey, this is not working right, this is not working, and by the way, these two people need to talk to each other to get you the maximum benefits.
And sometimes I think, and this goes back when our clients first meet with us, their first call, we spend 2 hours getting to know them as people and
Mm-hmm.
getting to understand their life goals, not so much their business goals, because we want everything else to roll in around that. If you're dealing with all of these different providers and they're not clear on what your outcomes are, because you're not clear on what your outcomes are, you're going to end up in situations like that where
Yeah.
they give you the wrong advice. It's great advice, but it was the wrong advice for you.
Yes.
Maybe it was perfect for somebody else,
Yeah.
but maybe not so much for you. One of the last areas that I do see business owners struggle with is investing outside the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I really prefer that business owners invest outside their business because the world changes, right?
Yes.
Um, Chat GBT right now is breaking things, so to speak, in a lot of different business models.
Yeah.
And if you're not aware of that, it might dramatically affect your business. And I think every business has got certain kinds of risk, and you just don't, and it could even be the business owner risk. Like if you're the linchpin of your business and you get sick, or a family member gets sick and you're taken off your game, or
Mm-hmm.
we go into a recession, or who knows, there's a million reasons. Having that pile of money invested in something totally different And
Yes.
again, you can do it with tax savings. Just to me makes a lot of sense that it lets you sleep at night and it's backup capital should you ever need it. What have you
Yeah.
found?
Yeah, I mean that's a great point, and we always with all our businesses because often individuals will come to us and have a very successful business, and they've done no investing outside of their business, and their business is going great, and that can be considered an investment in itself, but it should be part of a well-rounded, well-diversified, and well-allocated portfolio. So if you took a business, and often it's because if they are making good cash flow and all of that, it's their biggest asset by far. Maybe even to be a bigger asset than their home and all of that. But really, when you think about it, a business should probably be in a category of an at-risk investment. So, I mean, when we do the Hilton True Wealth portfolios, we have four buckets. The first bucket is a guaranteed bucket. The second bucket is a guaranteed income bucket. The third bucket is at market risk. And then the fourth bucket is like private equity alternatives. So your business is probably in one of those two last buckets where you're taking a lot of risk because, like you said, something could happen to you, something could happen economically in the market. I've seen it happen to people over the years. And so you're taking a lot of risk. So it's never a bad idea to have investments outside and building investments, whether it's via 401k or that's maybe one way to do it. We have a lot better ways to invest in the 401k, but also those buckets I talked about that are the basic foundational buckets that are safe, secure, where you're making, say, 5-6% per year, year after year, and that money's not going anywhere no matter what happens, unless the entire economy blows up or something. But under normal circumstances, that's there for a backup or emergency funds. Everybody talks about that, having a certain amount of money in cash available. Does that mean cash sitting in your business account? Some business owners say, that's my emergency fund. Well, technically, no. An emergency fund should be on the personal side. If something happens with your business, you deplete that money in cash in the business, then that's your emergency fund that should be there for 3 to 6 months of income. Should something, I'm not going to say catastrophic, but something really bad happens. Okay. So it's about asset allocation and diversification. So that's why, and your point is well taken, that we believe strongly, and we always, clients that come to us that just have their business, really encourage them to start building a portfolio outside of their business for added protection and added wealth accumulation and growth.
And along those same lines, so we, like you said, emergency fund, we want 3 to 6 months inside the business.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can do 3 to 6 months outside the business too,
Mm-hmm.
to
Absolutely.
deal with life. So you have both of those. And today, the banks actually pay interest. You can get high yield bank accounts now paying 5%. If you're sitting on a good chunk of capital in the business, we're talking to our business owners about treasury management, even in small companies, because their working capital can now make money, which hasn't happened in decades practically. So
Yes, that's
it's just
true.
being very aware of that, hey, you're leaving money sitting there on the table. If you're not having these conversations, you should be having these conversations to understand that.
You're
And, in the investment world, everyone says, don't put all your money into one stock. Well, if you're putting all your money into your one business, you're putting all your money in one stock. So it just common
great point.
sense. You
Yes,
gotta split it out a little bit,
you got to
and
diversify.
you
Um,
gotta diversify and
yeah,
figure what works for you.
yes.
If people would like to learn more about you and the programs that you offer, what's the best way for them to find you?
Very simple. We make it easy. Just go to Hilton Wealth, hiltonwealth.com. Learn a little bit more about us. There should be a pop up too, where you can order my book for free, my latest book, which is called The Tax Free Business Owner. which we do tax planning for folks and work on getting them to a zero tax bracket over time, just like the wealthy, so the wealthy do. They're welcome to order that book. I have another book coming out too called Hilton Wealth, and if you get on our list, you'll find out about it soon. That's how the Hiltons didn't just get wealthy from real estate, but how they maintained their wealth over all these generations in very kind of specialized, unique ways.
Great. We'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You got it. Well, it was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this unedited video of the Profit Answer Man podcast. If you'd like to catch the full episode and learn more about what we do, check us out at profitcomesfirst.com. We also go through the Profit First book and each and every chapter in the beginning episodes of the podcast, so check those out as well. Thanks for listening, and here's to you having a more profitable and growing business.